In creating a piece of visual music, my aim is to share and communicate an idea through a process that combines animated visual imagery with musical performance, usually on solo clarinet, as you see here. My approach can best be explained with reference to specific projects. I've chosen excerpts from just a few. These will serve to pinpoint not only my method, but also to provide some insight into what I'm aiming to achieve. Sometimes the inspiration for my pieces is primarily musical. At other times, I use visual music as a way of tackling a difficult subject or putting forward a controversial point of view. Take Olivier Messiaen's esoteric world of sound and colour as an example. My aim here was to throw some light on the composer's very individual form of synesthetic perception. From his student days onwards, Messiaen drew inspiration from the celestial palette of colours at Chartres Cathedral. It helped him to endure the extreme deprivations of captivity when, early in the Second World War, he was taken prisoner. And it was for a fellow prisoner, clarinetist Henri Coca, that Messiaen wrote Abîme des oiseaux, Abyss of the Birds. In that short excerpt, all my patterns and colours were derived from a single rose window at Chartres Cathedral. It was only after completing my interpretation that I came across Messiaen's Préface du Couleur de la Cité Céleste, where he overtly declared that its form was entirely dependent on colour, like the rose window of a cathedral with its flamboyant and invisible colours, a description which, as it happens, aptly describes my visual interpretation of Abîme des oiseaux. It was almost as if I'd known what was in the composer's mind when I produced my imagery. But how? Why had I chosen one particular rose window as my own source of visual inspiration, when in fact I had so many other options? I can see now that it was Messiaen's synesthetic skills that made my choice inevitable. It was his ability to accurately transmute a wide range of celestial colours into audible sound combinations that enabled me to see what was in his mind's eye. His music really had talked to me. Science and scientists often provide a springboard for my work. In creating a piece of visual music illustrating Alan Turing's morphogen theory, my approach has been to perturb just two Turing patterns in all sorts of ways to engender a process of continuous growth and regeneration. My piece, Turing Alila, visual music on the theme of morphogenesis, is based on this idea. In that excerpt, I was matching my imagery against the pattern of notes in Germain Taillefer's Sonata for Solo Clarinet. As you will have seen, an extraordinary diversity of forms emerged spontaneously from my image sequences. It seems that by perturbing Turing patterns, I've uncovered a purposeful tool for simulating natural processes. Turing would not have been surprised by this result, of course. He anticipated it. But still, I think he would have shown delight in what can now be achieved with the digital technology he initiated. It's only now, over 60 years after Turing proposed his morphogen idea, that biologists are finding out what Turing's mysterious morphogens really are. By applying his biological mathematics in laboratory experiments, scientists have not only succeeded in replicating the markings of fish and birds, but also they have discovered ways in which Turing's theory can now generate advances in regenerative medicine and stem cell surgery. In simulating the results of scientific endeavour, my visual music assists in clarifying concepts and ideas that might otherwise remain elusive or esoteric, none more so than brain and mind, where I am taking, as a starting point, Turing's claim, made in 1950, that the brain's behaviour should be, in principle, predictable by calculation. For this work, my chosen music is Stravinsky's 3 pieces for solo clarinet. The composer's episodic improvisations give rise to dreamlike visual fantasies, all derived from a single complex pattern. It's a pattern based on Islamic geometry that is characterized by a multitude of interconnecting ribbons that act as links between the brain's neurons. In the next excerpt, you'll see that I am treating my Islamic pattern as a Turing pattern by perturbing it in all sorts of ways. Every image there was derived from my Islamic pattern. Between them, they conjure up any number of network options. I'd like to think that my geometric idea is not just a fancy, but it might have some basis in fact. Turing, as long ago as 1951, believed implicitly in the possibility of making a thinking machine. And later, in the 1980s, others put forward the view that the brain was an unexplored form of engineering, one inspired and controlled by an astonishingly intricate architecture. Could this be anything like my intricate Islamic geometry, I wonder? Turing's discoveries in computation, mathematics, and artificial intelligence have earned him a place alongside the greatest of British scientists. But if he'd lived longer, Turing might have found the missing link on how our brains work and how we think. It's known that shortly before his death, he was trying to make quantum mechanics fully predictable, which no one has been able to do. He thought of there being some unknown quantum mechanical law which could account for the actions of human will. Alas, without him we're still floundering. Moving on now from science to art. Shapes is based on a transcription of J.S. Bach's first cello suite. Its 6 movements provide opportunities for me to explore the intrinsic relationship that exists between music and abstract art. Within the constantly shifting patterns of shapes, you can discern images that resemble, sometimes closely, a particular type of abstract art. In my performances, I don't give the game away at the beginning. It's only at the end that I reveal the sources of my digital simulacra. In that example, the Courante from Bach's Suite, you will have seen black and white images which conjure up the mesmeric linear patterns of Bridget Riley. In shapes, the analogies I found between the works of 9 abstract artists and their digital simulacra have surprised me. There appeared to be more common denominators than I would have expected between my computer simulations and the artworks themselves. Of course, I am the first to admit that my digital simulacra are but pale imitations when compared to the original memorable images of my 9 artists. In Cityrama, I'm investigating the relationship between music and architecture. Is architecture frozen music? Is music liquid architecture? The inspiration for creating Cityrama was one particular building in the City of London, the Leadenhall building, colloquially known as the Cheese Grater. It's the main facade of the Cheese Grater, sloping up 45 floors into the sky, that offers a giant easel of opportunity, an opportunity to paint with colour and light. I seize this chance by conjuring up constantly changing rhythmic patterns on the Cheese Grater's facade. All those patterns were derived from the Cheese Grater's distinctive architecture, and it is these same details that appear in a more recognisable form later in the piece. In a series of reverse explosions, fragments of the Cheese Grater gradually come together or spin apart to reveal the architectural elements from which they are derived. It's from these experiments that I conclude that architecture is no longer frozen music, although, just possibly, music can be liquid architecture. So now you've seen excerpts from just 5 pieces. In my various presentations and performances of visual music, I bring together a disparate set of interests and ideas. Ideas that range far and wide, stemming from my past or current activities in music, art and science, design and architecture. In making music talk, whatever the subject, I'm seeking always to bring facts to fantasy and fantasy to facts, with results that can be surprising, as I think you'll agree. I have many as yet unexplored ideas, so keep watching this space.